bring in Shane Obata, portfolio manager at Middlefield Capital, and he joins me now. Shane, you're a shareholder of Alphabet and Microsoft. When you see this kind of regulatory scrutiny, what do you do as an investor?
I get annoyed. That's the first thing that I do. I think you said cost of doing business. Unfortunately, that's exactly what this has become at this point. It's every year there's more fines. So I don't want to get too political, but it's definitely frustrating. But I think the important thing is that these litigations will take time to play out, right? Many years. So with the Apple case, for example, it's going to take multiple years to come to any real determinations, and then there will be appeals, and then there will likely be fines. It's going to take a long time. So in terms of the near-term investment case, it doesn't change much, in my opinion. That said, it's of course it's concerning, right? And some things more than others.
I mean, beyond just having to pay those legal bills and deal with it, does it slow growth? Because we're talking about, practices that are viewed as anti-competitive, but also if they engage in them that do favor themselves, right? Favoring their browser, favoring their own apps within the App Store, favoring their own offers at the expense of rivals. If they're forced to stop that, doesn't that affect their growth?
I was just talking to our CIO about this topic, and he basically said the regulators are going to go where the excess profits are, basically, right? So that's what's happening here. I do agree with you that you don't want favoritism. You don't want companies to become too powerful, but without getting too philosophical about it, I think as the owners of these distribution channels, and I'm talking specifically about the app stores here, that's a model that we see in other places too, right? They just have the microscope on them because they're earning so much profit. But like grocery is an example that I always go back to. So you run a grocery store, you have insights as the operator of that store, and then you can use those insights to roll out your private label business. You can favor your own products in terms of placement and whatnot. So it's similar. You see it in other places, but it's just under more of a microscope in tech. So is it really fair? I'm not exactly sure, but I do think that on the side of Apple and Google, they own the app stores. And so that should help them to kind of have a say in this, but we can definitely argue about if it's too much.
Well, and we can argue about it. Certainly, in some ways, it shows up in the shares, though Google is penalized, I think, for other reasons relating to Microsoft and ChatGPT. Apple, though, has just steadily kind of drifted lower. It's down about 14% from its peak. This is not one that you own. But on a pullback, is it getting interesting to you?
Yeah, I mean, we do have some. It's just you're probably looking at our top holdings list for ETFs. So, but coming into this year, I think it's important to realize that after such a strong year for the whole M7 group, like the dispersion this year is very big between the top and the bottom, right? Apple and Tesla specifically have been really weak. So I do think that both of those names are getting more attractive for sure. As I mentioned, regulatory, there are some things we're concerned about with Apple, but the bottom line with Apple is this is the number one or number two most valuable network of consumer applications, data, et cetera, in the world. And we can't forget that. And the long-term Apple bull case has been selling more services per installed device. That is still the bull case for me. And this year we're going to have to deal with a lot of iPhone, a noise around iPhone, specifically around China, which is extremely weak. And those are the things that made us concerned coming into the year. But as you noted, it's been very weak. So we're slowly warming up to it, but there's big challenges for this year.
I spoke with a guest earlier who made sort of an explosive comment that maybe it's time for Tim Cook, over the next 12 to 18 months, that he should no longer run the company. And he gave him his flowers around his ability to manage the company, the operations, and even navigate China. But in terms of coming up with innovation, that Apple's really fallen down there. But I listened to you talking about you're looking for that services line, right? To just keep on growing. Do you need innovation to own Apple?
I think that notion has been the bear case for many years. It's been a well-known bear case, which is to say the iPhone is the same from generation to generation, just like a sports video game, for example. Why should I have to pay up? And we've seen it in elongated replacement cycles, which means that people are waiting longer in between buying new phones because probably for that reason, right? They say, what is the actual difference between the last generation and the new generation? Do I really need it? So that's been the case for a long time, but I think that's missing the real upside, which is on the services side. So is innovation still important for Apple? Definitely it is, but I don't think people should focus solely on the iPhone. That's been a mistake over the past few years. And then lastly on Tim Cook, I think we probably need to give him a little bit of time because we've gone through a very weird period coming out of COVID. During COVID, booming electronic sales, including smartphones and other electronics. And then after the post-COVID hangover period, we're now back to normalizing. So it's been a very weird period, if you know what I mean. It's like huge excess demand and then a huge drop off. And now we're seeing kind of irregular activity in China. So it's hard to discern. I don't think he's a bad CEO though.